Hello and a very warm welcome to all of you. So, in today's session, we'll be discussing some more questions based on critical reasoning. As discussed before, we have solved some easy level questions and some medium level questions, moderate level questions in our previous session. Today's session, we will go a little on a higher scale and we'll be solving some difficult level questions for you to will make try to make it for you to understand, like we'll try to make it simpler for you so that you can understand it very well. So let's begin with the session. So in today's critical reasoning session, we'll be solving some more interesting as well as some difficult level questions. So to begin with, let's see what do we have in our first question here. So question number 1 to 20, you have to choose the best option to the question of the following passages. Okay, let's begin. So the very first question says, the Workers' Union of Rice Corporation, a rice processing plant, is attempting to obtain a pay raise from Rice Corporation management to pressure Rice Corporation management into accepting the union's proposal. The head of the union has proposed a boycott against supermarket food stores which are owned by Mart Food, the parent company of Rice Corporation. Okay, the answer to which of the following question is least directly relevant to the union head's consideration of whether a boycott of supermarket will lead to acceptance of their pay rate proposal? Would the loss of business at supermarket stores materially affect Smart Mart Food? Are the staple food products purchased by consumers at supermart stores readily available at other stores not owned by Smart Food? How many supermarts are within the region of the Rice Corporation plant? Is Smart Food the only corporation that operates both rice processing plants and food stores? Okay, so let's understand what will be the answer here. So to begin with, I see that with A, if a loss of business at supermarket would have a large economic effect, on Smart Food, and would that be a point in favor of calling for boycott? I don't think so, right? So option number B eliminated. With B, we can see if people have nowhere else to buy their staple food items, they are unlikely to carry out the boycott, which might make the president less likely to suggest it. So definitely, this also doesn't makes least relevant answer to what the union head consideration has said here. If we read option number C, it says if the majority of supermarts are outside the vicinity of the rice corporation plant, rice corporation workers may rarely shop there and a boycott would not affect the company, right? Within the region. So definitely it's not going to affect. So there is one option which says, is Smart Food the only corporation that operates rice processing plants and food stores? So this is clearly relevant because whether other companies also own grain processors and food stores seems to have little relevance to the question of whether this boycott would be successful, especially when compared to the question posed in other choices. We see that this somewhat makes the relevant answer. The union president needs to decide whether to call for a boycott against Supermart according to the question stem. Three of the answer choices would clearly help him make the decision, but one answer choice would be less relevant, right? And this is the one which is very, very less relevant. So, option number D makes the correct answer. Next question. Next question says, Supermart clothing stores should hold one day only sales to clear merchandise that has been returned because it is in defective in some way. The supermart should sell this merchandise for up to 80% less than original retail price. They will find these sales to be an effective way of getting rid of defective merchandise as long as they inform customers that the discounted merchandise is not returnable. So the author assumes which of the following about the one day only sale merchandise is predicting the effectiveness of these sales, right? So the author basically concludes that the sale of greatly discounted merchandise would be effective at clearing out defective merchandise, citing as evidence the fact that merchandise would be non-returnable, like it will be the final sale, right? Let's read some options here. Option A says the effect in the merchandise are not so significant that customers will be unwillingly to pay even the sale price. Only few shopkeepers purchase merchandise at full retail price. If these sales become popular, supermart have to have them more often. Next option says the majority of the one day only sale merchandise will be purchased by shoppers who would otherwise not shop at supermart. Okay, you see, when we are reading this, right, when we are trying to understand what the author is trying, so you see, the author must be assuming that nothing will prevent people from actually buying the defective clothing during these one day sales, right? And I think if we are making an assumption here, the author assumes, right, if there's an assumption of one day only sale, the defects are in the merchandise are not so significant that customers will be unwillingly to pay with the sale price. So they will definitely pay and they will be willingly paying for it, right? This option is a relevant option. This is a good assumption. Whereas you see in B, C, and D, uh, we aren't given information about how merchandise sells when it is not on sale. So only few shopkeeper purchases merchandise at the full rate price. We don't have information to this. Again in C you see uh, sales. Supermart will need to hold these sales more frequently if they become popular. So even this will be effective in clearing out defective merchandise, but it is somewhat incorrect. D option, we don't know anything about the shoppers going to the sale, right? So we cannot talk about shoppers here. So this is also an incorrect option. The correct option is option number A. The correct assumption. Okay. Now let's move to question number 3. Question number 3 says a brochure for city Z highlights the reason why residents should move there rather than to other cities in the state. One reason that the brochure mentions is the relative higher salary packages in city Z, where the inflation rate is 8%. Which of the following statements, if true, cast the most doubt on the validity of the reason to move to city Z mentioned above? Let's see what will be the answer to this. Okay, so we have somewhat four options here. The state where city Z is located has an average unemployment rate of 7%. Other reasons to move to city Z include the school system and easy access to recreational activities. The national inflation calculated during the last census is 4.3%. City X, located in the same state as city Z, recently built a new factory that will double the salary packages. So you see, first of all, we are not talking about or we are not comparing any of the city with the other one, right? So comparison is not valid here, and because of that, we can definitely rule out this option. Now we have ABC. In CUC, the national inflation rate, something out of scope is being talked here. Why are we talking about national inflation rate? This is also somewhat a uh, irrelevant kind of a option here. Again, when we read option number B, so similarly other possible reasons to move to cities such as schools and recreation are also not an issue. So this will again not make the answer correct, and it will not cast the most doubtful on the validity of the reason to move to city Z. The state where city Z is located has an average unemployment of 7%. This somewhat, you know, is creating a doubt whether we should go or not go, right? So option number A makes the correct answer again. Next question. City A and City B are roughly equal in size and local population. A survey was done measuring traffic patterns during the summer months for each of the past 4 years. The survey found that on average in town B there were 30 minor car accidents, in which in May as well as 30 in June. During the same 2 months in town A, the average was only 15 minor car accidents each month. Thus, if Dents were looking to open a new shop in one of the two cities, it would be more likely to succeed in town B. Which of the following, if true, would most seriously damage basically means weakens the conclusion drawn in the passage? More people walk to work or mass transit in city B. The state is planning to add a throughway exit for city B. The traffic volume in city B quadruples in the summer because it is a beach town. In May and June 5 years ago, city A had double the amount of accidents than city B. So definitely we can rely on the option where it says during the same 2 months, right, in town. Now, which are these 2 months? May and June, right? Was only 15 minor accidents each month. Thus, if Dents were looking to open a new shop in one of the two cities, it would more likely to succeed in town B. This is what is being concluded. So, the traffic volume in city B quadruples in the summer because it is a beach town. So, this is what the writer is actually trying to convey here, that however the figures are only for the two several months, if the traffic quadruples for those 2 months and there were average 30 accidents each month, it can be assumed that for the remaining 10 months there are actually only an average of 8 accidents per month, half the rate of the city A. These numbers would indicate that Dentco should actually open their shops in city A. That's for sure, right? So we'll go with option number C, clearly stated. And this will definitely weaken it because this is no logic to go with the conclusion which is actually mentioned here, right? It's a kind of, an option B is basically strengthening it. Option B is strengthening it, right? Where option D is somewhat weakens but not damages, not extremely weakens it, slightly weakens it. And option number A is irrelevant because higher number of accident in city B still occurred even the higher number of walkers. So those who use mass transit, so not applicable here. So we have option C as the answer here. Next question says, Szymanski suggests that the problem of racism in football may be present even today. He begins by verifying an earlier hypothesis that clubs' wage bills explain 90% of their performance. Thus, if players' salary were to be only based on their abilities, clubs that spend more should finish higher. If there is pay discrimination against some groups of players, fewer teams bidding for black players, thus lowering the salaries for blacks with the same ability as whites. That need relation may no longer hold. He concludes that certain clubs seem to have achieved much less than what they could have by not recruiting black players. Which of the following findings would best support Szymanski's conclusion? So we have to find an option which supports it. Okay. The argument states clubs that spend more should finish at a higher, have been achieved much less than could have been non-recruited. Okay. Certain clubs took advantage of the situation by hiring above average shares of black players. Option number A, I think, focuses on clubs that recruited black players. It's a consequence and hence not supporting the idea what he's actually trying to conclude. Writer is actually trying to conclude. Second one says clubs hired white players at relatively high wages and did not show proportionately good performance. Hmm. This can be concluded, somewhat concluded. Let's mark this. During the study period, clubs in town with a history of discrimination against blacks underperformed relative to their wage bill. So option number C throws no light on the relation between club that spends more should finish higher, right? Eliminated. Clubs in one region which has higher proportion of black players had significantly lower wage bills than their counterparts in another region which had predominantly white players. And nor does this. Doesn't supports, right? The only correct answer is B, which is actually supporting the conclusion which the writer has said in the end of the sentence. Okay. Moving to the next question. The offer of the government to make iodized salt available at a lower price of 1 rupee per kilogram is welcome, especially since the government seems to be concerned about the ill effects of non-iodized salt. But it is doubtful whether the offer will actually be implemented. Way back in 1994, the government, in an earlier effort, had prepared reports outlining three new and simple but experimental methods for reducing the cost of iodization at about 5 paise per kilogram, but these reports have remained just those reports on paper. Which one of the following, if true, most weakens the author's contention that it is doubtful whether the offer will be actually implemented. Okay, so I think very easy to understand. Just go through the options and see which of the options you finally uh, select or choose based on your understanding, which will actually weaken the author's contention. Which would weaken the author's contention. Okay, enough time given. So the answer to the following question, let's see. The government proposes to save on cost by using three methods it has already devised for iodization. You see, A covers government's honorable intentions, which look best on paper. So definitely not an answer, which is it is not weakening, right? The chain of fair price distribution outlets now cover all the districts of the state. Many small like joint sector units have completed trials to use three iodization methods for regular production. Again, this is strengthening the author's contention and not weakening it. The government which initiated earlier effort, again talking about government and its information which has effects on non-iodized salt. So the only option left is option number B. Uh, Not actually. I think option number B also somewhere strengthens it, right? Option number C. Why option number C? I missed one part here, which says joint sector units have completed trials to use the three iodization methods for regular production. So it will be the best choice, I think, because it has reached the implementation stage from the pilot stage, right? So here this might be a good possible answer, which is weakening. This again, fair price distribution outlets again strengthens it and not weakens it. And this is talking more on feasibility factor, you see. This is talking more on feasibility factor. So not weakening the argument. Next question. The problem of traffic congestion in Athens has been testing the ingenuity of politicians and town planners for years, but the measures adopted to date have not succeeded in decreasing the number of cars on the roads. In the city center in 1980, an odds and events number plate legislation was introduced under which odd and even plates were banned in the city center on alternate days, thereby expecting to halve the number of cars in the city center. Then in 1993, it was decreed that all cars in use in the city must be fitted with catalytic converters. A regulation had just been introduced, substantially reducing import taxes on cars with catalytic converters, the only condition being that the buyer of such a clean car offered for destruction should be at least 15 years old. Which one of the following option, if true, would best support the claim that the measures adopted to date have not succeeded? Best supports, okay? Okay, take your time and just go through the options once. Okay, at times we can definitely, go with the option which has all of it. Like, see, in the 1980s, many families purchased second cars with the requisite order, even number plate. Okay, were banned in the city, but people did buy, right? Given in the passage. In the mid 1990s, many families found it feasible to become first time car owners by buying a car more than 15 years old and turning it in a new car with catalytic converters. Post 1993, many families seized the opportunity to sell their more than 15 years old car and buy clean cars from the open market, even if it is meant for going the import tax subsidy. So you see, A would only result in more cars per family, but B and C defeats what Athens' purpose as citizens devise ingenious method to maintain status quo both in terms of number of cars and congestion, right? So in that case, I think your answer would be option number D, where all the three statements are in support of the claim that measures adopted to date have not succeeded. Next. Although the limited sense of freedom regarding appointments and internal working, the independence of the central bank is unequivocally ensured. The same cannot be said of its right to pursue monetary policy without coordination with the central government. The role of the central bank has turned out to be subordinate and advisory in nature. Which of the following best supports the conclusion drawn in the passage? Now you see, uh, the central bank can only express what? Central bank can only express reservations on monetization to the government. It definitely cannot be the head of it. So, a decision of the chairman of the central bank to increase the bank rate by 2 percentage points, and if you are aware of these banking system, you will understand that it is never the decision of a particular bank which decides to increase or decrease these things, right? So this definitely does not support, because they do not contribute, this option do not contribute to the conclusion in support, of course. Government has repeatedly resorted to monetization of the debt despite the reservation of the central bank. This is somewhat supporting, but let's read the rest. The central bank does not need the central government's nod for replacing it. Does need, because this is not the boss, this is not the head of all. The inability to remove coin shortage was a major shortcoming of this government. So this is an irrelevant one, not required. So the correct answer is option number B. Government has repeatedly resorted to monetization of the debt despite the reservation of the central bank, right? Okay. Moving to the next question. Three airlines IAJA and SA operate on the Delhi-Mumbai route. To increase the number of seats sold, SA reduced its fares, and this was emulated by IA and JA immediately. The general belief was the whole volume of the air travel between Delhi and Mumbai would increase as a result. Which of the following, if true, would add credence to the general belief? Okay, very easy to identify. You read the options first. Increase in profitability of three airlines, extension of the discount scheme to other routes, a study that shows that air travelers in India are price conscious, a study that shows as much as 80% of air travel in India is company sponsored. You already know that B in option number D, nothing is company sponsored. 80% is not never company sponsored. Extension of discount scheme to other routes. Why would someone go to other route when they want to go travel from Delhi to Mumbai or Mumbai to Delhi? Increase in profitability, we are not talking about how they are making their profit. We are actually trying to believe that why this general belief, volume of air travel between would increase as a result if the fares are low, because people are price conscious in India. This is the correct answer. Okay, next question. According to McNeill, a Brahmin priest was expected to be able to recite at least one of the Vedas. The practice was essential for several centuries when the Vedas had not yet been written down. It must have had a selective effect, since priests would have been recruited from those able or willing to memorize long passages. It must have helped in the dissemination of the work, since a memorized passage can be duplicated many times. Which of the following can be inferred from the above passage? Reciting the Veda was a Brahmin obligation. The Vedic priest was like a recorded audio cassette. McNeill studied the behavior of Brahmin priest. Vedic hymns had not been scripted. Okay, so okay, see, apparently McNeill is a Westerner who is doing sort of research on the role of the Brahmin priest in ancient Indian society. From the way his thoughts are evolving in the passage, you pick up the words, you know, you pick up the words, recite, right? Recite, memorize, dissemination, duplicated. If you pick up these words and connect the dots, you will see that McNeill can only understand the role of a Vedic priest by drawing a direct analogy between the Vedic priest, whom he does not understand except superficially, and a recorded audio cassette, which is essential and ubiquitous item in McNeill's world. So, definitely option A and D are not going to be useful. And studied the behavior of Brahmin priests. It is okay, but it is less of an inference. It is more of a surmise, right? If I just talk about C. So the only option we have in hand is the Vedic priest was like a recorded audio cassette. So this is what McNeill's idea of understanding Vedas is, right? So option number B makes the correct answer. Next question. Developed countries have made adequate provisions for social security for senior citizens. State insurers, as well as private ones, offer Medicare and pension benefits to people who can no longer earn. In India, with the collapse of the joint family system, the traditional shelter of the elderly has disappeared, and the state, faced with a financial crunch, is not in a position to provide social security. So it is advisable that the working population give serious thought to building financial base for itself. The question here is, which of the following, if it were to happen, weakens the conclusion? So we have options. Okay, we can make two premise out of these this passage. Premise one can be that if developed countries then social security for the elderly, and premise 2 can be no social security for the elderly in India, as it is not a developed country and also the traditional support system for them is vanishing, right? So we can conclude that therefore the working people in India must save for their old age. So which one of the following, if it were to happen, weakens the conclusion? The investable income of the working population as a proportion of its total income will grow in the future. The insurance sector is underdevelopment trends indicate it will be extensively privatized in future. India is on a path of development that will take it to a developed country status with all its positives and negative implications. If the working population builds a stronger financial base, there will be a revival of the joint family system. Not talking about this, of course, very irrelevant option given here. It strengthens the conclusion. If I go with this option, it clearly strengthens the conclusion and not weakens it. What weakens is option number C. Okay, next question. Cigarette constitute a merry 20% of tobacco consumption in India, and fewer than 15% of the 200 million tobacco users consume cigarettes. Yet these 15% contribute nearly 90% of the tax revenue to the exchequer from the tobacco sector. The punitive cigarette taxation regime has kept the tax base narrow, and reducing taxes will expand the base. You have to best bolsters the conclusion that reducing duties will expand the tax base. Hmm. Okay, let's read the option. Cigarette Manufacturers Association has decided to indulge in aggressive promotion. Mm, are we talking about the promotions of it? We are like basically talking about the tax regime, right? So this will be ruled out. There is a likelihood that tobacco consumers will shift to cigarette smoking if cigarette prices were to reduce. The cigarette manufacturers are lobbying for a reduction on duties. Definitely, they are not lobbying for this. An increase in duties on non cigarette tobacco may lead to a shift in favor of cigarette smoking. An increase in duties on non cigarette tobacco may lead, this is just the opposite of what is being said. The correct option would be, there is a likelihood that tobacco consumers will shift cigarette smoking if cigarette prices were to reduce. Right? Okay. Move to another option on the question. The dominant modern belief is that the soundest foundation of peace would be universal prosperity. One may look in vain for historical evidence that the rich have regularly been more peaceful than the poor, but then it can be argued that they have never felt secure against the poor, that their aggressiveness stemmed from fear, and that the situation would be quite different if everybody were rich. It can be inferred from the above passage that a lot of aggression in the world stems from the desire of the haves to defend themselves against the have nots. Universal prosperity as a foolproof measure of peace can no longer be accepted. Both A and B, neither A and B. Okay. So the passage states that the rich have never felt secure against the poor, and their aggressiveness stemmed from fear of poor. Mm, we have to find a conclusion where B actually refutes the idea of the conclusion. So definitely B is a no-no. So because B is a no-no, C and D is also a no-no. We are left with option A. A lot of aggression in the world stems from the desire of the haves and to defend themselves against the have-nots. Next. It's an inference. Once again, you have to infer. The passage says the effect produced on the mind by traveling depends entirely on the mind of the traveler and on the way in which he conducts himself. The chief idea of one very common type of traveler is to see as many objects of interest as he possibly can. If he only after his return home says that he has seen such and such temple, castle, picture gallery, or museum, he is perfectly satisfied. Far different is the effect of travels upon those who leave their country with a mind prepared by culture to feel intelligent admiration for all the beauties of nature and art to be found in foreign lands. When they visit a new place, instead of hurrying from temple to museum to picture gallery, they allow the spirits of the place to sink into their minds and only visit such monuments as the time they have at their disposal allows them to contemplate without irreverent haste. It can be inferred from the above passage that the writer prefers the second type of traveler. The first type of traveler is the lay traveler who does not understand the worth of any place he travels to. The objective of the second type of traveler is not to see much but to see well. Very easy to understand. I'll leave this to you. Please think and answer. What can be, how can you critically reason, figure out a reason which can be an inference to the passage? I hope you have concluded the answer. The answer to the following question would be option number C. The objective of the second type of traveler is not to see much but to see well. Okay. Next question. Whether we look at the intrinsic value of our literature or at the particular situation of this country, we shall see the strongest reason to think that of all foreign tongues, the English tongue is that which would be the most useful to our native subjects. It can be inferred that the speaker is a die-hard colonist, the speaker has the good of the nation at heart, the speaker is addressing an issue related to a colonial empire, or none of these. Okay, so C may not be true in the immediate temporal context of the argument, of course, right? B is clear from the argument, it is not an inference, and A is of course a wrong one, right? This is this you cannot pass a judgment on this based on A. So clearly, no, none of these is the correct answer. Next question. Aspiration is nothing new. Neither is the debate over what the Indian middle class is and what it wants and what it buys. Since the mid 80s, that has been the focus of the economic policy papers. So called pro and anti poor budgets and marketing strategies that have successfully broken the barrier of urban selling and reached deeper into rural India with increasing income levels and aspirations. Based on the above passage, it can be inferred that the Indian middle class has been the focus of economic policies for a long time. Indian middle class has graduated from being the deprived class to the pampered middle class, both A and B, or neither A and B. Okay, none of the given option is supported by the passage, I think. C may not be true in the immediate. Okay, let's read option A. Indian middle class has been focused on economics for a long time. Okay. B infers far beyond what necessarily or reasonably inferred from the argument, right? So definitely not B and not C. But yeah, not neither also. We can go with option A, which says in Indian middle class has been the focus of economic policies for a long time. Okay, next question. Keshav was born in 1923 and so in 1932 he was 9 years old. It is clear from this example that the last two digits of the person's birth year will be the same as the last two digits of the year of that person's 9th birthday, except that the position of the digits will be reversed. Which of the following is the best criticism of the assertions? The generalization is valid only for those birth years that do not end in two zeros. The example does not exhibit the same principle as is expressed in the generalization based on it. The generalization is valid only for those birth years in which the last digit is one greater than the second to the last digit. The example cannot be shown to be correct unless the truth of generalization is already presupposed. You see, in question number 17, A is incorrect. The generalization is valid only for those birthdays that do not end in two zeros. So this is incorrect, first of all. Right? If we go with option number B, if I try and understand option number B, last two digits of the person's birth year 23 are the same as the last two digits of the person's ninth birthday 32. Thus, the example does not in fact exhibit the same principle as generalization. So again, B is again not appropriate. Now, if I read this option C, a good criticism of the generalization would show when the generalization is not true. So the generalization is valid only for those birth years in which the last digit is one greater than the second to the last digit, right? Whereas the fourth one, again, this option again is talking about the difference between 1932 and 1923 is 9. The correctness of the first statement depends only in the fact that the Keshav was born in 1923 and was alive in 1932. Thus, the truth of the generalization is not presupposed, definitely not presupposed. So, option number D eliminated. Next question. Okay, this is a mixture of some mathematics as well. So you have to have a very good command in your math subject as well, so that you do really well if such questions come. You have to technically think a lot. Okay, sure. Next question. The 35 corporations that filed income tax returns showing a net income of more than 200 million accounted for 55% of the total taxable income from foreign sources reported on all tax returns. 65% of the total taxable income from foreign sources came from the 250 returns reporting income from 20 or more countries. If the statements above are true, which of the following must also be true? Okay, A, B, C, D. We have four options here. We have four options here, and based on this, let's read it one by one. Most of the total taxable income earned by corporations with net worth of rupees $200 million was earned from foreign sources. Corporation with net income of above $200 million account for more than half of the total taxable income from foreign sources. We cannot tell this information, that the information given what proportion of their total incomes from all sources is derived from the income from foreign sources, right? So this is not appropriate. Again, if I read option number B, it says wealthy individuals with large personal incomes reported 45% of the total taxable income from foreign sources. So second answer choice is also incorrect, because all we can infer is that 45% was reported by taxpayers other than corporations, right? Eliminated. Income from foreign sources amounted between 55 and 65 of all reported taxable income. Is that so? Is that the idea here? Actually not, because the passage refer neither these nor any other figure in the passage refers or implies any percentage, right? So we cannot go with this option also. Some of the corporations with net above reported income from 20 or more countries. This is what is mentioned. So this statement turns out to be true, totally true. Okay, next question says doctors find the treatment of those people who seek help because they are unable to stop drinking or overeating is rarely successful. From these experiences, doctors have concluded that such habits are intractable and success in breaking them is rare. As surveys show, millions of people have dropped the habit of drinking and many people have successfully managed a substantial weight loss. If all of the statements are correct, an explanation of their apparent contradiction is provided by the hypothesis that there have been some success in treatment and those success were counted in the surveys. It is easier to stop drinking than it is to stop overeating. It is easy to break the habits of drinking and overeating by exercising willpower. Those who succeed in curing themselves do not go for treatment and so are not included in the doctor's data. Easy to understand, very easy. Please read it on your own and then I'll pass on the answer to you. Apparent contradiction is provided by the hypothesis that, okay? Please keep this in mind. Okay, you see, the correct answer to the following question is D. Those who succeed in curing themselves do not go for treatment and so are not included in doctors' data, which is so common. in India, right? That we try to treat ourselves without going to the doctor most of the time, and it is very highly promoted in our homes as well. Okay, on the whole, Mr. Krishna remarked, engineering students are lazier now that they used to be. I know because fewer and fewer of my students regularly do the work they are assigned. Which of the following identifies a flaw in Mr. Krishna's reasoning? Okay, plenty of people besides engineering students do not work as hard as they do. We are just talking about engineering students, so we'll stick to them. Mr. Krishna does not consider the excuses his students may have for being lazy. Does not consider, he's definitely considering it as an excuse, right? So, not a correct reasoning. The argument does not propose any constructive solution to the problem it identifies. The argument assumes that Mr. Krishna's students are representative of engineering students in general. Yes, this is a flaw, that his argument is only specific to engineering students, right? He is specific to engineering students, specifically only talking about only engineering students. Okay, moving ahead. So question number 1 to 6 says list under each of, okay, again fact, inference and judgment question. So we have 3 sentences. You have to identify fact, inference and judgment. So it can take long time for such technology based transitions to happen. The transformation in IT sector took half a century. The rise of incredible tourism, now the world's largest industry, took about 10 years. The fall in the telephone call rates or a satellite link has been even more substantial, and it is happening at greater pace, but we are only beginning to see the merry effects. We have 3 options, option A, B, C. You have to find which one is a fact, which one is an inference, and which one is a judgment. Okay, let me give you an idea that there is no inference. There is no inference in any of the options given. See, if I say it can take long time for such technology based transition to happen, it will take long time to develop, India to develop. I am passing an opinion. In short, I am giving a judgment. First thing first, clear? Now you see, do we have an option of judgment? We have it in B and C and D. Read second one. The transformation in IT sector took half a century. The rise of incredible tourism, now the world's largest industry, took about 10 years. This is a fact, talking about a fact which took place in so and so time. The fall in the telephone call rates or a satellite link had been even more substantial, and it is happening at a great pace, but we are only beginning to see the merry effects. Is this a fact? Do you see any fact here? No, we see a kind of opinion being passed on, right? So only one option is here, JFJ, judgment, fact and judgment. This is the correct answer to this question, right? Next question. Foreign direct investment in India has shown a drastic growth. The new economic policy is successful. Due to devaluation, exports have substantially increased. The globalization policy have made the entry of foreign companies easy. Please decide on your own. There's no judgment. There's no judgment in this question. I'll give you a hint. So if there's no judgment, what is it? It is basically based on fact, fact, fact and inference. So the answer is D. Next question. It has been observed that most managers find it difficult to delegate the work effectively. It has been observed, like you as a person or I as a person has observed. There's no factual data, or I'm not inferring, I'm just talking, giving an opinion. So I'm giving a judgment. Delegation, okay, some managers feel insecure and uncertain in their jobs. Okay, delegation is an art and science. This can also be my opinion, might be true, might not be true. Delegation is an art and science. Okay, is there any such specific definition mentioned anywhere about delegation? I don't think so. Properly executed, it can be effective for the management. Okay, this is an inference, of course. So JJ dash I, JJ dash I see only double J and I in option number A, which says this is also a judgment, right? Next question. When everyone left him, he talked to himself in his amazing novels. It's a conclusion, which is a clear sign that it's an inference. Elsewhere, he is genius to carry over the feelings of childhood to manhood, to be childlike but not childish. Krishna's midlife crisis followed him like death in his entire life. Okay. So these two options are judgments, and this is an inference, as I can see that in option number 1. Next. According to all statistical indications, the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan has managed to keep pace with its ambitious goals. Okay. The midday meal scheme has been significant incentive for the poor to send their little ones to school, thus establishing a vital link between healthy bodies and healthy minds. Only about 13 million children in the age group of 6 to 14 years are out of school. The goal of universalization of elementary education has to be prerequisite for the evolution and development of our country. You see, statement C is a fact and it is an open to discovery or verification. So this is a fact, clearly a fact. You see, do you have option number C, like in third part, do you have fact in any of the options? You have in option A, C and D. So this eliminated. Again, you see, option number D makes a judgment that is expression of personal viewpoint, if you see. So this is a judgment. So do you have D as a judgment in any of the options? Yes, we have in option number A and C. This is again eliminated. This one eliminated. We are left with two options, option A and C. So we have to figure out whether option 1 and, okay, option 1 is inference, clearly an inference, you see. You have to decide in option number B, whereas option number B is a judgment. Answer is option number C. Next question. We should not be hopelessly addicted to an erroneous belief that corruption in India is caused by crookedness of Indians. The truth is that we have more red tape. We have 89 days to start a small business. Australians take 2. Red tape leads to corruption and distorts a people's character. Okay. Every red tape procedure is a point of contact with an official, and such contacts have potential to become opportunities for money to change hands. You see, option if this eliminates option A, right? You see, option number, statement number B is a fact. Is a fact because the latter half of the sentence is given by the way of an example and not by the way of a conclusion. So this is a fact, clearly a fact. So do we have fact in any of the options in the as B? Yes. So this one eliminated. Now you see, in sentence number C, if I say a statement D is an inference. You see, every red tape procedure this happens. This is an inference. So which option has an inference? Only option number D. So you are, it becomes easy for you to select an answer if you identify it in this way: JF, JI. JF, JI, which means this is a judgment, this is a fact, this is a judgment, and this is an inference. So this is how you can easily locate to the options given here. Okay, assemble your options and answers easily. Okay, I'll leave these 3 questions on you to decide. So I'll show you 3 more questions and then I'll give you answers to these questions so that you answer it well. Please see, read the question and answer. See whether you are able to identify this or not. I'm sure you will be able to after solving so many questions. Use some tricks and then answer the questions. It becomes really easy. The idea of answering such questions becomes easy when you apply certain strategies to it. Question number 7 it is. Just note it down somewhere. I hope you're sitting with a pen and a paper. So just be ready with a note. Okay, showing you another question, question number 8. Take a pause and answer this. Okay, presenting you to the next question, showing you the next one. Please just go through this question very, very clearly. Okay, I'll tell you the answers to all of these questions. I hope you have answered correctly. The answer to this question number 7, answer to question number 7 is option number D, which says judgment, fact, inference, inference. Answer to question number 8 is option number B, judgment, inference, judgment, fact. Answer to question number 9 is option number A, judgment, fact, inference, and judgment. Okay. So these were some of the questions which were of difficult level, and there are no more questions going to come difficult than this. This is the this was the this was the end of the type where we discussed. There can be variations sometimes, but the level of the questions will somewhat be these many only, not more than this. I hope you